Thank you. Thank you. Hello. How is everyone today? I hear you. Are we good? All right. Thank you, Kay. Thank you all. Thank you, Nick, for having me. Thank you for the wonderful introduction, welcome, and the ability to just shake all your hands and give you a hug and just say hi. It is a very sweet place, this place. And I think it's sweet because of what you've all brought to this place, what you've created. So I'm really excited to be here, really excited. And I wanted to start with a poem, a sharing. In twilight chambers, I have dreamt of your trees and your blue skies, of your scents and your bird songs. Now you are revealed, shining, splendid, drenched in light. Lying before me like a miracle, you recognize me once more. You beckon to me gently. Every fiber of my being trembles with your ravishing presence. That is Hermann Hesse. And I wanted to share that ravishing presence. If I were to sum up intuition in one word, that's what it is. And that's what this place is too. This idea of ravishment, the idea that you can create something and destroy something. Ravishing has an interesting dichotomy, doesn't it? A unity that is creative and destructive. And so I'm really curious. What is intuition's role in this ravishing experience? What is it doing? How is it being in our lives? And I think we often see it. I'll speak for me. I often see it show up in very interesting ways. It is the prodding force within us that says, how about more love in your life? How about you try something new? It's a bit of the rabble-rouser. And I think it gets a bum rap. It gets treated a bit with disdain and perhaps put aside. And so today, in the spirit of unity, of holisticism, and just recollecting all of our power, all of our strength, all of our abilities, I'm just really curious about bringing intuition back into the fold, really integrating it. And I'm going to take a bit of an Eastern bent on it, okay? So as you know, I'm from One Spirit, and we're all about really connecting to the wisdom traditions that are all around the world. It's all about inclusion and diversity. And so to just be really curious, what do other people think of when they think of intuition? We know very well what the Western concept is, right? Intuition is, well, I kind of explained it already. We're very much about intellect, right? Knowledge, the knowing, the mind. That's been really prized here in the West. And there's other forms of knowledge that we are aware of in our bodies. The idea that you know viscerally before you know mentally is a really big piece of information that we sometimes put aside. And then the third one that I see is really the heart. And that's really the body, but I'm putting things into categories because that's what my mind does. That's going to be fun all day. The heart, as Islam and the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings upon him, and all of us equally, he said that the heart, that intuition is the wisdom of the heart. So it's beyond knowledge. It is knowing, but it is wise. And it is coming from our heart, our body center. So I just want to really, really explore that, And we're going to have a bit of a framework today. I'm going to call it the AAA framework. So on the roadside of our lives, when things fall apart and break down, you know, you call AAA. Well, today we're going to have a bit of spiritual AAA. So it's going to be awareness, acceptance, and action. So action we have down pretty pat here in the Western world, right? We very driven to complete tasks. So to take a couple of steps back and say, well, what is informing that action? What is informing me in how I'm living my life? How can I inspire myself thoroughly and fully before I take that step? Maybe it's not this giant step. Maybe it's just a shift here, and my trajectory is completely a different direction. So we're going to be working with AAA today. I hope they're friendly customer service today and they're in a good mood. But we're going to just be exploring that today, okay? And so let's keep unraveling our psyches just a little bit. Emotions are a bit responsive and reactive, right? In our minds, we have a bit of a, I don't know about you, but I have a committee. It's not just one voice, really, it's a committee. And they're sitting around the table, and they fight a little, and they argue back and forth. And one of them is really emotion-based, right? And I just want to tease that out a bit. Very curious about our emotions. Are they really about the present moment, or are they about responses to something that has happened or the future? Just something to be attuned with. What is my response right now? Is it really real? Is it about now? Same thing goes with our intellect. We love to categorize, organize. We're like a filing cabinet up here, right? And so we try to base the future on that card catalog that we have in our mind. So again, the mind seems to be around, working before and after the present. And that's where I think the gift of intuition, the first huge gift, it has its pulse on right now. Unmistakably right now. It is precognitive in a way. It knows before you know. And in a way, I'm kind of using the same words that we use for God, aren't I? This idea that there is this ability to be connected to something so deep that feeds us, that sustains us, inexplicable, perhaps unknowable. It was kind of a challenge to talk about intuition today. To just realize we're trying to discuss something so ineffable, God itself, our heart's wisdom itself. I'm using words to try to describe something that is beyond words. And so to recognize that wonderful paradox, that there is this rich ability to have wisdom that is just beyond our concept of wisdom. And so to put aside, I'm just going to put aside our committee, right? We have our emotions. Maybe we have fear at the table with us, telling us not to do something. Maybe we have anxiety because they just love to show up. And we might have joy in the back, a little quiet, but prodding along as well. And then we have some of our intellect, our history. And then there's intuition. I would posit that intuition is the one that always calls the meeting. It's the one when you're curious about all those responses you're having and wondering why the committee is going full force, that intuition is the guy that got it, or gal that got it started. They call the meeting. They're the ones that, before even words were spoken, they went, ooh, oh, wow. Before there is even an understanding, there's a knowing. And intuition calls up everything amongst us. So I'm really curious about a framework. Here's the AAA. How do we work with that? Because it's so easy to dismiss that moment, right? I mean, to take note of, okay, something's coming up for me right now. I just, let's give an example. I just went to an art show, and I have all these emotions that have come up from just being at this art show. I've been to the Hamptons less than 24 hours. I know I at least have that covered, that you have art shows. And so let's say something comes up for me, and it is an emotion, a bit of resentment. But something comes up, I go, ooh, and I feel this emotion of resentment. I'm really curious, what is the precursor? What is the wisdom around that? And forgive me if I'm getting a little psychoanalytical, but I'm really curious about kind of really sussing out the truth and the wisdom of every moment. How do we do that? And so a framework I want to just propose and for you to just consider is a framework called compassionate communication. It's also known as nonviolent communication. It's what Mahatma Gandhi used. It is an ability, and it was created so that two competing, again, this idea of non-unity, when really there is unity, two differing sides come together and work something out. And I don't want to posit ourselves against ourselves, but we're going to use this framework just as an idea to say, how can we work with all this information? Intuition started a great conversation, but how do we not let it fall apart? How do we not say to ourselves 6 months later, oh my goodness, I'm having the same exact conversation all over again. I'm finding myself struggling with the same exact thing. Have I made any progress? And those really tender-hearted conversations and struggles, taking the judgment out of them, are precious, precious moments. And if we could be grateful to intuition for leading us there, we're halfway there. So gratitude is first. So this idea of compassionate communication, Samuel Goldberg is the originator of the work. I'm sorry, Marshall Rosenberg. I'm mixing up my folks. And he had 4 pieces to it that I just want to suss out together. First is observation. We talk very often about this idea of non-judgment, right? Not being wrapped up in the story. Just being very clear with ourselves about what actually happened. So in the idea of intuition bringing up something to us, I'm treating this like a conversation. Something comes up, we're not sure what it is. Let us take a moment and pause and observe. This is the first A, awareness. Not judgment, we're not turning on critical mind whatsoever. Take a real serious pause and say to yourself, what am I observing? So instead of having a sentence that says, you know, every time I come to you, you make me feel like garbage. I'm just being, you know, plain spoken. We've heard statements like that said. Take it way back and say to yourself, every time I speak to you, is it really every time? Question everything. Lately, when I have been speaking to you, the last 2 conversations when I've been speaking to you, the last time I thought about this, I said to myself. Very clinical in a way. I understand that sometimes we need to be clinical and treat ourselves well, and this is the time. I think like the song says, right? I decide right now. You need to decide if you're going to be loving right now about this or not. And it's okay. If you want to get wrapped up in a drama, it is wonderfully juicy and delicious. It's enjoyable. I mean, it is pop culture at this point, this idea of oppositional entertainment. We do it to ourselves. Let's be totally blunt, right? And then at one point, enough is enough. You're sick and tired of being sick and tired. And you say, what can I do to move this forward? I truly find that heartbreak is such an amazing place of learning. We don't want to ever own up to heartbreak. We want to really move on to something else. We want to feel better. Comfort. Comfort is such a big thing in this culture. And I would just suggest that comfort is a paradox. That it is actually rather discomforting to always seek comfort. That it is in its own way kind of a hustle. That in its own way does not serve ultimate peace. Therein lies the peace of God. So to be really curious is to walk into discomfort. Just to really own that. And to reach out to our support systems and observe honestly, thoroughly. And it's rough. I don't mean to say something is going to be difficult, but it takes courage. It really does. And so just know that I speak to this as a prayer. I know you have all the courage you need. You have all of our support in this community to persevere. And so observe, be open, take it all in, just see what it is. And as you observe, and it could be very simple, see what feelings come up. And be careful. My little wisdom about feelings is we've always masked feelings to be ideas. Like, I feel like an idiot. I feel like an idiot is not a feeling. I feel sad. Sadness is a great emotion that we don't allow ourselves to feel. I feel despair. Connecting with hopelessness. And again, I know I'm venturing a bit into the dark, but we don't know the light until we know the dark. We can't appreciate the light until we know the dark. And so the idea is really be clear about feelings and what they are. Again, they do have their purpose. They're past-based and future-based. Just be really clear. What is coming up for me? Because the next piece in this process is the need. This is what intuition, thank you, this is what intuition was prodding us for all along. So I know, you're like, what is this guy talking about? He's in a process here, he's talking like an engineer. And I'm sorry, I am an engineer, so I love like steps and stuff. My husband would be just giggling right now at me, like, oh, you gave a 4-step process for intuition. And it's helped me to just let me know where I am along the way. And the third one is really need. What are you needing? It's not really that new Acura or whatever car that just came out. What are you needing? What are you needing? Is it joy? Is it peace? Is it, I feel despair because I am really needing hope right now. Forward movement. That need is that pre-verbal, precognitive sound that your intuition made. It took note of something, not a deficit, not that you did anything wrong, not that you're less than. It just wants more of life. It just wants more for you. It's, we're always curious about the human condition, right? I am curious about it because I'm like, are we a little neurotic by always wanting more? Are we? Are we? So I'm getting a lot of yeses. And I'm curious. I actually don't know about that. I watch, I grew up on a farm. It's lovely to be around here and reconnect to more nature. Forgive me, I'm from Manhattan, and so I haven't seen concrete in quite a while, and I'm really happy right now. And to be around nature and to recognize that all of nature is intuition-based. I watch my dog, and he is so present right here, right now. There is nothing else going on. And so the primacy of need in our lives, I think we just need to recognize it. Let it shine forth. Let it be our companion. Let it be a leader in the conversation around that committee in our mind, right? There's, and maybe it's just my perspective, there is a shunning of intuition, of that connection to the heart, a heart-based way of being. Perhaps a shunning really of our connection to the divine. We talk about it intellectually, but let's get it in here. Let's live from that place. And so that need, that worrying that occurs, that grumble in your stomach, that's what intuition's getting at. That's the third step. Just get really clear about what that need is and apply it internally. This is how to landscape our internal landscape. Like, this is how to self-maintain. And the fourth one is the action piece, the request. There is always a request to be made of ourselves. And it could be, you know what, Karim, I just need you to be more open to this idea. Maybe you need, you could just think and be open about this. Maybe it is, the request is, I need to investigate another job. One that really is more about my ministry and not being an engineer anymore. There is always a request. That is actually the part that lets the pressure out, that gets you moving forward. So if you're like me and sometimes have asked yourself the same question and had the same conversation over and over, that's the missing link, right? What can I request of myself? What can I give to myself? And again, it doesn't have to be material. It's usually a value you really prize: freedom, joy, creativity, togetherness, right? Community. We came together here today, I would say, led by our intuition. We didn't need to know what was going to happen. You didn't need to have my talk before I gave it. You didn't. You came here led by something else. Let that lead you all the days long. All the days long. Thank you so much for having me.
All the days long. And we enjoyed words too. Beautiful.